Today we're going to review how to find the slope, and then we are going to find the slope algebraically. So I'm going to start with these three graphs, and I'm going to ask you to find the slope of each line. So for A, B, and C, find the slope on your own, pause this video, and then check your work against mine. Welcome back. I hope you've paused your video. So I'm going to look at letter A, and we're going to find the slope between these 2 points. So here's our first point, here's our second point. Imagine a person at the top looking downhill. Remember that slope is represented by the letter M. It's rise over run. It's also the change in Y over change in X. The fancy name for it is rate of change. Okay, so our rise would be going down 2, and our run would be going over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to have a negative 2 over 6, which will reduce to negative 1/3. Remember, we always reduce our fractions. Now, graph B. Our point starts up here and goes down. Remember, we read from left to right. Here's our person. We would go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our rise over run is negative 6 over 6, which would be negative 1. You might have noticed this goes through perfectly each time, and you may have connected that a little quicker. Our last one for C. Remember, again, that rise over run. It's interesting, all three of these are negative, and we're going to see that we go from negative down here. So we're going to go over and over, and we will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 5 down, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So this will be a slope of negative 5 over 4. Now let's just pretend for a moment that we don't have the graph. And I'm going to use letter C to show where things can get a little bit tricky. We're going to call this first point, point 1. So I'll just circle it and call it point 1. And we'll call our second point down here point 2. It does not matter which point is point 1 and which point is point 2. Make this a little bit bigger. You know that this is your x coordinate. We'll call it x1 for point 1. This is your y coordinate. We'll call it y1 for point 1. We'll do the same thing for this one. And when we do that, we know that we're simply doing the change in our y's over the change in our x's. So when we do that, what we're doing is we're subtracting. And so the formula says that we do y2 minus y1, basically the difference of the 2 points. And we do x2 minus x1, the difference of the 2 points. Like I said, the order doesn't matter, so you can decide what order you want to go in, but you do need your y's on the top and your x's on the bottom. So if I'm going to do y2 minus y1, my y2 point is negative 8, minus my 1 point is negative 3. Watch how that gives me 2 negatives on the top. We'll be cautious as we go through this. Then if I do x2, that would be negative 2, and x1 is negative 6, so minus negative 6. Now, if I've done this correctly, I should end up with the same answer that I got with the graph, which was negative 5 over 4. So I need to remember that whenever you see minus a negative, that is the same thing as saying plus. So minus a negative is really plus. So I could rewrite this as negative 8 plus 3 over negative 2 plus 6. Negative 8 plus 3 will give me negative 5, and negative 2 plus 6 will give me 4. Now, if I had reversed my points, I would have received the answer of 5 over negative 4, which is equivalent to negative 5 over 4. We never leave a negative sign in the bottom. So now we have the opportunity to go down and find the slope of lines without having that graph to count on. So I will suggest that you do everything as this is all point 1 and this is all point 2. So when you do your subtraction, you have your point 2 and your point 1. If you would like to, you can say this is x1 and y1 and x2 and y2 for each one. You may not want to write that down. So I hope that you will pause the video right now and you will try A, B, C, D, and E, and you want to match Now notice we have 5 things and only 4 matches. That to me lets me know that one of those slopes might be identical. So you will have paused the video and then you are going to move on to checking your answers. So I will demonstrate my work. I will put it down below. I will put point A here. So notice I'm keeping it in order. 2 minus 10 and 7 minus 9 gives me -8 over -2, which comes out to be +4. So when I connect this, I will connect to that. For choice B, I would have -5 minus -11. Be careful that there is a double negative there. -1 minus -8. Whenever I see minus a negative, I turn that into a positive. So I'm going to remember that I add, and when I'm adding, I'm really thinking 11 minus 5 will give me 6, and 8 minus 1 will give me 7. So I end up with 6 over 7 for this one. The third one, for letter C, I'm going to have 3 minus -6 over 2 minus 5. Minus a negative gives me a plus, which would be 9 over 2 minus 5 is the same as 2 plus -5. So that's 9 over -3, which turns out to be -3. So we'll connect that here. Choice D is -1 minus 3 over 5 minus 6. Remember, you can label your points. And you will end up with -1 plus -3 is -4. 5 plus -6 is -1, which turns out to be 4. Remember, we thought there would be a repeat. And now, hopefully you have gotten the last one to be the same thing I have left. You can either skip this one and know it goes to -5 halves, or you can do it out. I'm going to do it out. So I'd have 2, this is letter E, 2 minus 7 over 6 minus 4. 2 minus 7 gives us -5. That's the same as 2 plus -7. 6 minus 4 gives us 2. Notice how they have the negative just right in front, and I have it on the top. Those are the 2 acceptable choices, to the left or on the top. And that is the first page. Let's move on to this page. This one says, draw a line with a given slope through the given point. What other point lies on that line? Okay, so I'm going to ask you to stop your video and try problem number 3. Follow the instructions. I'm assuming you're coming back after your pause, and I'm going to start with point A. So point A is right here, and it says it has a slope of -3. So I will say, well, a -3 slope would mean rise over run of -3 over 1. So I'd go down 3 and over 1, down 3 and over 1, and I'll keep going down 3 and over 1. Look at that, it goes through point B. It says, what other point lies on the line? So here's my line. I do not have a ruler, so I'm doing my very best job to straighten this out. And there we have it. So I'm going to say what other point lies on the line? Point B. Okay, now what if we draw from point A with a slope of -1/4? That's going to take us down 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Down 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Point D will be on that line. Same thing, I don't have a ruler, so I'm doing my best to make a perfect line. So point D. Now I'm going to start from point C with a slope of -1/2. Remember, negative means we're going to go down 1 and then over 2, rise over run, down 1 over 2, rise over run, down 1 over 2. So point E is on that line, and I would connect it. This is a negative slope. Remember, we read from left to right. We imagine a person is up here. And point E, a slope of -2/3. So if I start up here on E, I'll use yellow. -2/3 will be down 2 and over 3. It's going to go through point B. It's also, it looks like potentially, no, it's just going to go through point B, because if I go up 2 and over 3, I can see that it's not going to land on C. So here we are. And we would say that that goes through point B. Okay, and our last one, I'm going to ask you again to pause your video. This is a review. This is from what we've done in the past. So it says, make a sketch of a linear relationship with a slope of 4 and a negative y-intercept. Well, this is a little bit tricky because you don't have a graph. So I'm going to go up to the next top and I will use the black for this. And it says a slope of 4 and a negative y-intercept. So that would mean anywhere below 0 could be our y-intercept. I'll put it right there. And our slope would be 4, which would be a rise of 4 and a run of 1. A rise of 4 and a run of 1. I'll connect those. And there I have it. So that is the end of this lesson.